Hello everybody, welcome back to Brianna's Bookshelf. So today we are going to be talking about the worst books that I read in 2025. And of course this is according to me, no one else, just my own opinions. So just so you know, this is going to be a little bit more of a negative video. I will be talking primarily about things that I did not like about these books, but again, it's completely just my opinion. If you like these books, amazing. I'm very happy that they worked for you. You know, some things just don't work for everyone, and that's okay. But if you want to hear me talking about books that I didn't like, please continue watching. So luckily I didn't have too many books this year that I rated 1 or 2 stars, but I did have a few, so I want to talk about those and what I didn't like about them. The first one is Gothikana by RuNyx. Now I feel like this is a pretty hyped up book talk book, and it seems like it is fairly popular, so maybe this is a bit of an unpopular opinion, and you know, I can see why people like it. However, I thought the writing was just kind of cringe to me, to be honest. And this is a dark academia book, and there's like this professor-student relationship and kind of, you know, an underlying mystery set at this university. And I wanted to like the characters, but I feel like I just kept being put off from them a little bit. And then, yeah, it just felt very cringe. The mystery, like, didn't quite add up for me. And it just, the setting really wasn't sold to me either. I was so excited for a Gothic university setting, and I felt like I was let down, unfortunately. Like, I just didn't feel like the vibes were as strong as they needed to be. I just wasn't excited about it. That's all. And yeah, I just didn't love the romance, and ultimately, since this was a romance, I was not very excited about that. I would consider trying some of RuNyx's other writing potentially, but I kind of get the feeling that it's maybe not just for me, so maybe I shouldn't, because I just don't think I'm gonna like it. Then I had a graphic novel that I didn't like, and this was Ghost World by Clowes. I no longer own this. I had it, but I did donate this, and I believe there's a movie based on the graphic novel. I haven't seen it. I ended up getting it just off of the recommendation of someone else, and you know, just unfortunately it wasn't for me. It has like little to no plot, in my opinion. It's basically following these 2 teenage girl best friends who live in like kind of a small town, just like typical middle America kind of vibes. And the story was just very rambling, and I couldn't really see the point to it, if I'm being honest. And I didn't really like the characters either. They were both fairly insufferable, and yeah, overall it was just like one of the slowest graphic novels I've ever read. Like normally with a graphic novel I'm just like flying through it, but with this one I like literally didn't care what happened, so it was just kind of a slog, which is, yeah, pretty weird for a graphic novel. I feel like it does seem like it is popular overall though, because I mean, a movie was made out of it. I don't know, I don't see it, I don't get it. Then another one I unfortunately didn't like was The Paleontologist by Dumas. And I feel like this one I was excited about because this was essentially what I expected was dinosaur horror, which I was really interested in. I feel like that's a niche we don't really see a lot. Like, I don't think I'd read a book that was dinosaur horror before, and I feel like this had a lot of potential, and there were parts that I did like. So this one is like, it almost could have gone better, which is almost even more unfortunate. But with this one, we were following this man who starts working at a museum, and he does archaeology, so he works in like the dinosaur section of the museum, working on the exhibits and putting together dinosaur fossils. There's almost like this aspect of being haunted by dinosaurs, which is very interesting and very unique. But then there was also this side plot about how his sister went missing in this museum as a child. And I don't feel like the two plots mixed very well. It kind of left me a little bit confused, if I'm being honest.
Mr. Krabs, I am so confused.
I liked the idea of the dinosaur war and where it went, or like where it was going initially, but it just got a little bit too weird for me actually, which is odd. I normally love weird books, but this was just not quite the right fit for me. I didn't really find it scary. I just didn't feel excited about it. Next on the list is The Hemlock Queen by Hannah F. Whitten. And this is the second novel in a young adult fantasy or like romantasy trilogy. I think it's young adult, maybe it's new adult, I'm not sure. I read the first book last year, I believe, and I thought it was a good first book to a trilogy. It's essentially about this girl who has this sort of like death magic, and in this kingdom a lot of people are really into taking poisons as like a kind of drug experience. And yeah, there was just a lot going on. She had kind of got involved in the kingdom and like was taken to live in the castle, and I liked that first book. I thought it was pretty interesting and I was excited to read on and see what happened. But unfortunately, the love triangle was so bad. Also, like I just kind of like lost the plot, and I ultimately didn't even care about the characters in the second book. I just didn't care about who she ended up with anymore. I was getting lost by what was going on. I didn't even like either of the guys at that point, and it was kind of just like an all-around shitty situation. None of it felt romantic, and yeah, I just ultimately didn't really care about what was happening in the plot. Once again, that's such an easy way for me to not like a book, is if I don't care about what's going on in the plot and I don't care about the characters. Because see, for me, I feel like I could be a character-driven reader and love a book that has like no plot if I like the characters, but if both are bad, no, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Not me. Certainly not I.
So I do not plan to finish this series. I'm not going to read the last one. I just don't care what happens, so I don't need to know. Okay, my next one I think is going to be maybe a little bit unpopular because this is from a very beloved series. But my next worst book of 2025 was Mile High by Liz Tomforde. I know. Big tears. I actually read The Right Move first, and I'm really happy that I did, even though that's the second book in the series, because I absolutely loved The Right Move. I thought the romance was fabulous. I loved the characters, loved the writing. That has to be like one of my favorite contemporary romances that I have ever read. So I decided that I wanted to read the whole series, and of course that meant going back to the first book, Mile High, and I just really did not like it. Mainly the characters, one character in particular. Okay, so in Mile High, the love interests are Stevie and Xander. And Xander is a hockey player, and he is so full of himself, and he is like such a fuckboy, and oh man, he is a mess and extremely egotistical, and that is like an immediate turn off for me. Even like in a book, I'm like, I do not like this guy at all. And then he was very adamant all the time about how much he goes to therapy and like how much it's made him a better person, but he was like very obsessed with himself, which I get that it's good to have self-love, but it felt like an amount that was a little bit ridiculous. And then Stevie, the female main character, she was a flight attendant, and I actually really loved her character, but unfortunately that was not enough to save this book for me, because while I cared about her, I did not like the relationship. I didn't want anything to do with Xander's, and I didn't want to listen to him talk about himself for one more minute. I do plan to continue this series because, again, this was a character I disliked, but I do enjoy Liz Tomforde's writing, and I know that she can do a really fabulous romance. So I'm just hoping that the next male main character in the next book is better. Then I have To Snap a Silver Stem by Sarah A. Parker. So this is the sequel to Bleed a Crystal Bloom, I think is what the first book is called. And this is a trilogy. I liked the first book decently. Again, it was like a fantasy romance where I was like, I'm intrigued of where this is going. It seems a little unique. There was a lot of tension between the main characters in the first book that I was interested in seeing continue because it felt like kind of a slow burn. In the second book, things just absolutely fell apart, for me at least. I will say I do not get Sarah A. Parker's writing at all. I think in the first book it read a little bit more straightforward. In the second book, her writing style was such that at times I didn't even understand what was going on in the plot. It was very confusing to me. I feel like she was trying to be overly flowery with her writing, and it was sacrificing my ability to actually comprehend what was going on, unfortunately. And again, this was a really weird love triangle that I didn't get at all, and I was not interested in any of them. I didn't like the main character either, and yeah, it was just a hot mess, to tell you the truth. I didn't get it. The plot didn't make any sense to me. The characters didn't make any sense to me. This is one of the worst ones on this list, to be honest, especially coming from the first book where I liked it. This was just like an absolute no for me. However, this did get me with a really wild twist at the end. Okay? And I liked the first book, so I was like, maybe I will continue the series, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes, okay? Then last on the list of worst books that I actually finished was Escaping from Houdini by Kerri Maniscalco. Now, this was a really sad one. I just read this a couple months ago, so this is still fresh in my mind. I love this series. I loved the first two books, gave them both 5 stars. I'm obsessed with the characters. I think the writing is great. I think the world building is wonderful. And the atmosphere, the gothic, like kind of Victorian atmosphere is so strong. But this just went so wrong for me. Like, I couldn't stand this. And I was just trying to get to the end. So this is the 3rd book in this series, and this is about Audrey Rose, who is like this teenage girl in kind of the Victorian era, I think. I don't know, like, I actually don't know any eras, so don't quote me, but anyhow, she's in an era that is not this one. And she wants to train under her uncle to do like mortuary sciences. And I think that was really interesting, and she's a fabulous character. And then there's a little bit of a romance between her and Thomas, one of her uncle's other students. And there is also a big mystery, and kind of like, it's like a big murder mystery in every book. They're all different. And I, again, thought the first 2 were incredible. This is about like a traveling circus performing on a ship, which sounds super interesting. I usually love circus type stuff, but there was a big kind of miscommunication type thing going on here. And honestly, a very bizarre separation of the main characters. That always drives me crazy when the main characters like can't talk for some reason, or just getting like kind of drifting apart. That is a big pet peeve of mine. And especially when it's not done well, and this was not done well at all in my opinion. Like, this made me genuinely question their relationship, which is so sad because I was obsessed with them before this book. And yeah, it was just so bad. There is one more book in the series I haven't read yet. I probably will read that one because I already own it, and I'm really hoping that it can redeem this for me. But yeah, on top of like that kind of miscommunication and separation thing, the mystery wasn't as good in this one either, in my opinion. It just really, like, all of the murders felt very expected. Like, I could see a mile away, like, okay, someone's about to get murdered 5 minutes, and then someone else is gonna get murdered, and so it just wasn't exciting. Okay, those were all of the books that I actually finished that I did not like this year, that I rated 2 stars or less. But there are also a couple books that I DNF'd that I did not finish. And, it's kind of unfair of me to say that they were the worst when I did not read the whole book. But I thought I'd include them here at the end with the disclaimer that I did not finish these, various rates of how far I got into them for these 3. But I thought I'd include them just to give you all a sense of what I DNF'd this year, because why not? We're already on the hating train, might as well continue. So going back to Sarah A. Parker's trilogy, yes, I was got by the ending of Just Now the Silver Stem, and I was like, hold up, what just happened? And I needed to know what was going to happen next, despite the fact that I didn't like the characters and the plot, but I was like, I just gotta know. Also, what contributed to this, I think, was that I was traveling at the time, so I was kind of looking for like just a ton of books to download on my Kindle while I was on flights and such, so that kind of also influenced me continuing it when it was probably a bad idea. But I did end up starting and then not finishing To Flame a Wildflower, which is the last book in that trilogy. And, you know, I wanted to know what was happening next from that kind of plot twist at the end of the second book. I was not satisfied when it was explained to me. Again, I still didn't like the characters, the plot was getting even stranger, and I just had to give up. I don't think that Sarah A. Parker's writing is for me, unfortunately. Maybe it's just not this series. I thought about finishing the book, but then I actually was reading Goodreads reviews and found out that the series isn't finished. I thought it was a trilogy this whole time. Apparently, it's still ongoing, and like no one knows how many books they're gonna be, but I don't even think that she's released a book in that series in like 2 or 3 years. So I was like, okay, I'm not on this train anymore. I'm not waiting to find out what happens 3 years from now in another book that doesn't need to happen when I don't even like the series. So yeah, I just had to stop myself there and stop reading that. Then, this is kind of sad, but Close Knit by Jenny Colgan. This is supposed to be like a cute little romance, I think, that takes place in Scotland and is about a group of people who knit together, like a little knitting club. I'm sure that this is a sweet book, but this, I just did not pick it up at the right time. I was kind of trying to force myself to read it because I had the physical copy, someone gave this to me, and I was just extremely bored, and I did not get very far. I just said, you know what, this is not the time for me, and that's okay. I didn't like it, but I'm sure someone else will, and I can definitely see the appeal of this type of book. And my most recent DNF was Vows and Ruins by Helen Scheuerer. And this is another disappointing one because I just made my 10 before the end video a few weeks ago, and this book was on that list. And I think I even said in that video that I had enjoyed the first book, Blood and Steel, like decently, like it was about a 3-star, I think. And so I was unsure of how I felt about continuing the series. And I know that there's 4 books in the series and there's also a spin-off series. So I kind of wanted to like it just because there's so much content in the world. Unfortunately, we're not going to be continuing, okay? It was a DNF. So the main thing I didn't like about the first book was that I was not sold on the romance. I just didn't care about their romance. I liked the female main character and I liked the world and the plot. Like, it was very action heavy. The female main character, she is training to be a warrior basically, and she was super badass. And it's kind of, the series was billed to me as kind of like an epic fantasy, but also romantasy. So then I start the second book, and the couple is doing this we can't be together kind of thing, where they're like, no, we can't be together, but then every single chapter there was smut. And they kept being like, we can't be together, but then they were hooking up the whole time. And I was like, okay, you're already together, first of all, so I don't know what you're talking about. And there was like none of the plot, or like, there was no like fighting or ambition or mystery. I mean, there was like a tiny bit, okay? But I swear there was so much smut in the first 15% of this book. And again, I didn't like the couple, so I was like, this is the part that's the least strong in this book to me. So I just quit because I was like, no, I can't sit here when I literally don't care about this couple. I feel they have no chemistry. I am not enjoying it reading the smut scenes. So I just had to end it there. And yeah, I won't be reading that series, unfortunately, because it seemed like it had potential in the first book, but I just did not like where it went. All right, well, those were the books that I thought were the worst ones that I read in 2025. Thank you for staying here with me and listening to me be a hater for a few minutes. Again, sometimes that can be kind of fun, but again, these were just my opinions, my experiences reading these books. If you enjoyed them, I'm very happy for you that they worked out for you. I will see you in the next one. Bye.